I used to think my anger was the problem. Turns out it was the most honest thing about me.
Welcome back to the garden. I'm here with Daniela. I'm James, and
I'm Daniela.
today we're talking about one of the most misunderstood emotions in the Christian world.
And probably one of the most avoided, anger. I want to say something up front. We were not taught to think well about anger. Most of us received one of two messages growing up. Either anger is dangerous and must be controlled, or anger is a sin and must be repented of. Either way, the message was the same. Suppress it, manage it, and get rid of it. But what if anger isn't the problem? What if it's actually a signal, one of the most honest ones we have, pointing at something that genuinely matters? Today, we're talking about anger differently, not as something to fix, but as something to listen to. What is it saying? What's underneath it? And what changes when we stop fighting it and start hearing it? This might be one of the most practically useful conversations we've had, especially if anger has been something you spent your life either expressing badly or avoiding entirely. So, James, growing up, what was the message you received about anger, directly or indirectly?
That anger was part of life. It wasn't we see angry people all over. But it was, for me, the message wasn't good or bad. It was just there. I didn't grow up in a Christian household, so I don't have the history of being attached to what the Bible says about anger. But for me, the message I got about being angry is that there was a phrase that my father used to use: "Don't go away angry, just go away," which is funny now, but it kind of puts things in perspective. If you're gonna be angry, okay, be angry. Just don't go away. Just go away and be angry. So I think for me, that's what I initially received about anger. And as I got older and realized that anger plays a huge role in my own life as basically a juvenile delinquent, and anger put me in situations where I was no longer in control, like jail or kids' jail. So I learned to control my anger and use it, not all the time, but use it strategically.
The message I got about anger was that good girls don't express anger. I didn't have that freedom to express my anger freely. So I suppressed it. I learned to suppress my anger for a long time until an outburst would come, an outburst that was difficult later on for my friends, for people who were around me. So I was able to suppress that anger. Sometimes that led me to leaving certain relationships, places in silence. Sometimes it led me to outbursts. Because I wasn't taught that I can express and process that anger in a healthy way.
Now, when you get angry, what does it actually look like to you? Do you go loud? Do you get loud, or do you go cold?
Oh, it depends. It depends what kind of anger it is. Sometimes when the anger is, I would say, righteous, which is a signal, is pointing something to me, that is a moment of reflection for me, just to pause, to reflect and think about what that anger is telling me, what's going on. Maybe some circumstances are not serving me anymore, but still sometimes unfortunately, with my kids, I sometimes yell at them.
Out of anger, or is that their response, or you yell at them to make a point?
Out of anger, making a point.
Yeah.
And you?
Both. I can go cold, and I can get loud. Just ask my family. The whole town knows me. Yeah, small town. You can hear me on the other side of town. A very, very strong voice, and I use my voice to display my anger. And when I go cold, I just get disassociated. When I get angry to a point where I can't display my anger through voice, then I just go cold and disassociate, or I just become numb. When it comes to righteous anger, then comes a protector pattern, and I become very, very administrative. I become very focused on making sure that the righteous anger is communicated. So I will stand a young man at attention, even though I've been out of the military for 10 years, because he's, I have to share the story. I was in Germany in a shopping center, and there was a older lady, probably in her late 60s, and there was a young soldier, American soldier, probably in his mid-20s, at the cash register, and he was trying to pay with this card that didn't work in Germany, and she didn't speak English, and he kept yelling at her and telling her she's a stupid German, she learned English. And this is in Germany. So me being American, my righteous anger got a hold of me, and I came behind that young man, and I said, I just pulled my voice out, and he puckered up like the drill sergeant was breathing down his neck, and turned around and almost saluted me. I'm like, don't salute me, I earn my money. I work for a living. And he put him at ease, and basically 3 inches from his face, told him, put him in his place. And he turned around in tears and apologized to the lady. Was it the best thing to do in public? I don't know, but that's that righteous anger. That's just an example, and there are many, many more. Is in the airport, and I have that tendency to be very proactive.
And it's connected to that protector I see that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this case, it's a positive thing, because I'll stand up and protect somebody, or stand up and have righteous anger over somebody who doesn't do well, doesn't behave in an airplane. There's so many stories of that, people trying to rush, get out the door quicker when they didn't open the door yet. I'm like, just stay where you're sitting. We're all going to get out anyways. So yeah, many, many stories. Now you could ask the next question.
Many of us were taught that anger is a sin, full stop. How has that belief served you, and where has it cost you?
I wasn't taught that anger was a sin, because I didn't grow up in a Christian home. It became later apparent through different studies that anger is a sin. I never really saw it as a sin, unless the anger brings you to abuse, or the anger brings you to, impede someone else's right. So that would be the sin part of it. But the anger itself is, what we fight against. How it looks played out is where it becomes sin. That's how I see it. And it served me, because in the protector, in the area where the righteous anger, it served me well. It's also, the anger has been, it showed me areas that really bother me that I didn't see before. It's cost me a job or two. It's cost me a couple offers, because I was so angry at the ignorance of the partner, of the people I was supposed to work for, that I became angry at their ignorance of how they treat their people, and then I ended up basically being so angry I didn't get the job offer. So it cost me a job, but did it cost me that job? I don't know, because I don't think so. But it's cost me in other areas, relationships. I get angry and get into a fight, and then the anger splits, because it pushes people in their self-protection. And then you say things you don't mean to say when you're angry. You do things you don't mean to do when you're angry, or you do what you do mean to do when you're angry. Sometimes angry brings out the worst of us. So that's what it's cost me.
For me, it was a bit different. I wasn't taught that anger was a sin, but that it was inappropriate. And later on in life, it cost me my health, because for many years I didn't express my anger in a healthy way, so I suppressed it, trying to be the good Christian woman, showing grace, being resilient, but to a certain point when my body said no, and that anger was just accumulating in my body for many, many years, which showed up in a form of autoimmune disease. So that was a beginning of a new journey of actually starting to express my anger in healthy ways, starting to listen, to notice that anger as a signal, as something that I don't have to agree to anymore.
Interesting. What is anger actually telling us underneath the reaction? When you've sat with your own anger honestly and actually reviewed it, what have you found there as you're analyzing? What have you found when you really look at your anger and reflect on it, what you said earlier?
That many times that anger was trying to show me that there are certain areas, behaviors, pattern that I was running away from. I was too scared to face them, which showed up as anger towards other people, situations, blaming, instead of taking a deep look into a situation. Because again, as we said, like awareness brings responsibility. So the awareness also comes with a decision we need to make. So if I wasn't willing to make certain decisions, if I wasn't willing to be aware, it was just the anger that was on the surface, like bubbling. Something was going on, but beneath there were many, many different things.
Yeah, for me, I've realized that anger, what's beneath the anger, when I get angry about things that are not righteous, or I call righteous, or I get angry about things, it's normally always, 9 out of 10 times, it's about a competency that I thought I had, or I thought I had a level of, that's been exposed that I don't have it. So then I get angry at myself for believing that I was a higher competency of that area, and the person who showed me or exposed that my competency wasn't that high is actually kind of like shamed me, and the reaction from shame was anger, but deep below it was the reality that I had boasted myself past the actual competency that I had. And that realizing, oh, I'm not as smart as I think I am. I don't know it all in this area. That triggered the anger. It's that self-awareness being shown by somebody else. I'm not angry at that person, actually. I'm angry at myself because I just realized that I had been BSing myself about my own competency, and that person just happened to show me. There are other people who show me that, and I see it totally different. I don't get angry because the way I want to learn from them. I realize that my competency can't reach their level, or such a huge competency difference that I can learn from them. So my awareness of my competency is not high, is perfectly okay. It's not an anger. It's often those areas where I underestimate somebody, and then they show me up in my own competency area, and I realize, oh, then I get, my reaction is from shame, anger, and then I get loud. I get military communicative. There are things I do when I get angry with words. I'm very, very wordy, or I can be very, I can't think of the word in English. It's where I can win arguments quite easily with words. So that's for me, that when I sit down honestly and think about where my anger came from, it came from a missing competency that I thought I had. And yeah, That was the hardest realization. The difference between when I don't get angry and when I do get angry. And it's always the common denominator is always I've overestimated someone, and when I'm not angry, it's because I can learn from them. I just want to suck it all in and just learn and you know, like connect with a connection to the brains. I just sap it out, you know. Is there a difference between anger that's a signal and anger that's become a pattern? And how do you tell it apart in your own life?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, sometimes anger can just be a pattern, like a habit, as you said. Patterns are habits, so we learn them most of the time as children from our parents, our households, the environments where we grow up, so we can actually learn to behave from anger. So that would be a pattern. But anger is a signal. Like for me, it doesn't show up as an outburst. It shows as something stirring me from inside, something that takes my peace away. It's a different kind of anger. It's an anger that leads me to reflection, sometimes to protection, if I see people being hurt, for example.
Yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It's a signal, like with the competency issue, it's a signal that I've overestimated myself or overestimated the person. It's a signal that there's a certain type of anger. The righteous anger is something that happens often, but when I have other bits of anger, it's always a signal that I'm avoiding something, or I'm not competent in, or I didn't communicate clearly what I expected, and I thought I did, and then it's not met, and then I become angry because it's not met, not because it wasn't met. It's actually because I realized at that moment it was my fault. So I'm more angry at myself, but it looks like I'm angry at the other person.
But I would also say, when I think about it now, that it can actually mean both, and even at the same time. Most of the times when I feel anger, that's a signal for me that I have a problem with unforgiveness. That there's something I'm dealing with that I still haven't forgiven, and it might become a pattern throughout the years. If the wound is old, if my experience is old enough, and just certain triggers that happen daily trigger that wound, and that brings up anger, which at the given moment I think that is associated to the event, but it really isn't. It's associated to the past event that's not healed. So for me, it's a signal that I need to stop, reflect, and check my heart, who I need to forgive. Sometimes I need to forgive myself.
Well, yeah, that's a big one. Being graceful with yourself and others. Because that's often the case, is that we call it baggage, and that baggage becomes apparent when we get triggered. And there's always a funny joke that, like, you know, the difference between a relationship, a man and a woman, and men always don't understand why the woman's all pissed off, and he just forgot to take out the trash. But it's not just taking out the trash, it's everything else he forgot to do that she's asked him to do, and the last thing was just the drop that brought the thing to boiling, or the hair that broke the camel's back. I forgot all the phrases. So it's the baggage that's brought with us, and it's just one event that triggers the explosion, it triggers the anger, but it's not the garbage, it's the 10 other things that were forgotten.
Yeah, and here's where the whole self-protection awareness comes helpful, because most probably what led to that situation wasn't even what he forgot to do, but maybe running into his self-protection patterns, like dissociating or avoiding or controlling, which was just piling up.
That was his way of, for example, his way of self-protection is not doing what's asked of him. Disassociating, just focusing on what he needs to get focused on. It's interesting. It all plays together.
Which pushed her into her self-protection pattern of not being able to communicate, or not being able to be vulnerable, or avoiding conflict. So she didn't bring it up on time, so it all piled up, and eventually, because of that trash, it just resulted in an outburst.
Yeah. There's an old comedy act that I can't. It just becomes so apparent when we're talking about this. It's so funny. It's a guy, a comedian, talking about the difference between men and women's brains. I'll make it real short. You can find it on the internet.
Yeah, it's viral.
Yeah, it's probably viral, but it's the men's brains. They're sectioned off in boxes, and each topic has a box, and the boxes are not allowed to touch each other. And there's a box in there, a very special box that men love. And then he goes to the camera. He goes to a woman's brain. He goes to the female head that's on the pedestal, and he does his little cross and prays and says, now the women's brain like a ball of wire, and everything's connected to everything. So the 10 times he forgot to take out the trash, it's all connected. And that one time he forgets how to take it, everything gets lit up, and that whole ball of wire becomes lit up. And that's but by men just love to be in that one box, talk about that one thing, and no other boxes are allowed to be talked about. And what's really funny is there's one box that men love the most, and that's the nothing box, where men absolutely do nothing.
Which is difficult to believe that it exists.
Exactly.
For women.
And that's why women hate to see their men doing nothing. And that's so funny because it's so true. And that just kind of reminds me of the connection with the whole topic of anger. But have you ever been glad you felt angry? A moment where it was pointing at something true and important.
Yes, I was glad when I finally allowed myself to feel anger, to express the anger, to give it a name in front of myself, actually, to be honest before myself, before God, and just coming to that realization that there are things in my life that do not serve me anymore. There are things that I do not want to continue, that I want them to change, and that was a turning point for me. A start of a long journey of self-healing towards freedom.
Yeah, I can see the same. There are times where the anger showed me areas I needed to work on, areas that needed to improve, or areas that needed to address. The anger was true and important because it protected other people. So my righteous anger protected other people because I acted upon my righteous anger. So there were times where I actually felt glad that I have anger, which is against what the world thinks. But it all depends on how you look at the anger, and if it's controllable, and if it helps lead to serve other people. I think there's some area for discussion there. What's changed in how you handle anger now compared to 5 years ago? What actually made the difference?
I would say understanding the topic of anger first, understanding grace, because there were times in my life when I was driven by what I called back then righteous anger. And boy, I would win all the arguments and would just go like a bulldozer. And that cost me relationships. That cost me losing my community, because as a result, I felt so much anger, which in my opinion was so righteous that what I did, I withdrew, because that's what I do when things get difficult. So I withdrew completely from a thriving community because it no longer served me then, what I believed. So since then, I've just learned, being humbled by God and being in solitude, just me and him for many years, and allowing God to cleanse my heart, to show me also the places that I needed to repent of. Because there's always a place for repentance, even when we think that we are so righteous, that we have the right to be angry. So that obedience and open heart, open mind, and just allowing God to mold my heart, to clean my heart, that was a place that allowed me to see other people as well as people who also deserve my grace. So that's what changed.
Yeah, for me, 5 years ago, I would say probably I've gone a little bit farther back than 5 years ago. I basically kind of, I would say, shut down. I withdrew emotionally, which led to less anger. So I'm not sure which was better, because the anger wasn't, the outbursts and the angriness wasn't helping my situation. So I withdrew and kind of, I would say, I gave up on the situation because I didn't have the power, didn't have the energy to be angry any longer, and didn't have a community or an ability to be able to solve it, to share it. But that was like one of the key things that helped me understand to deal with the anger. Now I'm still working on it. So for you all who are listening or watching, think of the last time you felt genuinely angry. What was underneath that anger? What was actually hurt?
And if this opens something, bring it somewhere. The garden is our free community where this conversation continues, and you'll find the link in the show notes. See you next week.
See you next week.